because Blackpool won the League Two playoff final at the famous stadium here in London, but thousands of Blackpool fans boycotted the club's big moment because they're still at odds with the club's controversial owner and chairman, Karl Oyston. And Karl joins us live this Monday lunchtime. Karl, good afternoon to you.
Afternoon.
Karl, thanks very much indeed for joining us, because you know opposition to you still being there as chairman is still extremely evident. And you probably saw that yesterday, because fewer than 6,000 Blackpool fans made the trip. Karl, 5 years ago, Blackpool took more than 30,000 followers to Wembley for the Championship playoff final against West Ham. So numbers are dwindling and they still want you out, and yet you still stay on. You are one thick-skinned individual, aren't you?
I'm not sure about thick-skinned quite. Firstly, I think I'd like to say that how delighted I am for the manager and the players who have performed fantastically this season, and also for the supporters at Wembley and supporters who've stuck with the team all season. It really was another great day at Wembley for us.
But, at the end of the game, and you say that, and you're right to say it, Gary Boyer, your manager, he was asked about why are fans staying away in big numbers, and he says, well, what can be done? I can't answer it, he says. All I can affect is day-to-day coaching.
Well, that's exactly right, isn't it? Gary came in and the aim was to stop the decline, and he's done that spectacularly well, and got a team together that's played very well, and obviously received their just dessert yesterday. So I think that Gary's right. There's not a lot he can do other than put a good team out there and get them playing attractive, winning football, and try and get the supporters to support that are interested in football rather than politics.
So Karl, how do you answer this then? The supporters love their club, back the players, and embrace promotion, but they don't want you.
Well, I think there's been a lot of talk and only talk, sadly. The trust the supporters' trust seem to have backed themselves into a corner somewhat. They say that we should sell the club. Well, there's no buyers, no offers, other than the imaginary ones that they sometimes talk about. So I don't see how there's a possibility of them achieving their aims. And if there's people there to buy the club, if any offers come in, we'll publicise them if we're able to, but there just aren't any. So,
but Karl, would you entertain a buyer? Would you entertain a buyer, though?
Well, let's just deal with one thing first. They say leave the club. You can't just leave a business or a football club or anything in a vacuum by walking away. So it's just not a sensible thing to say. If there's a buyer, then let's talk about there being a buyer. There isn't a buyer now. Whether we'd entertain one or discuss with them, we'll see when that day comes. That day hasn't come, so there's not really a lot to talk about on that front.
But when you get so many fans turning their back on travelling to Wembley yesterday and turning their backs, Karl, on the club they love, something is badly wrong here, and the something that's badly wrong in their eyes is you.
Well, of course, there's something badly wrong. We've suffered a period of bad decline, and the results and performances haven't been what they should have been, and the club has declined. So you can understand that and you can sympathise with their position, but it doesn't alter the fact that there isn't an alternative. And if there is an alternative, let's talk about that. Let's talk about something positive. And if there isn't, then there's nothing to talk about.
But Karl, there's a buyer for everything. There's a buyer out there for Blackpool. You know that. I know that.
Well, if there's a buyer, then they need to come forward, stop hiding under whatever stone they're hiding under, and make themselves known and start discussions. But there just isn't. So if there isn't, then there's nothing to talk about.
What would be your sale price? I mean, obviously you don't expect it to say that on air and reveal your cards, but I mean, are you putting a prohibitive cost on selling the club? Are you a willing seller?
Listen, it's irrelevant what we are, unless there's someone who approaches us to talk about buying the football club or taking over. Now, there just hasn't been anyone. I mean, the supporters made what we call a non-offer for the club, and they couldn't even organise a big screen for the supporters that stayed away to watch the game yesterday. So what hope have they got of running a football club?
OK, so let's assume that you remain the owners of this club that you've had some roller coaster times with. What are you setting your sights on, Karl, from here?
From here, well, obviously, business as usual for us. I'll sit down with the manager this week, we must discuss immediate player futures. We've got 3 days from the final to exercise options that we've got on some of the players, and we'll discuss plans for next season and recruitment and get ourselves ready for life back in League One. And it's a fantastic thing to win a playoff final, and we've got a good record and had some very good days out at Wembley, but none of us really want to be in League Two or winning that final. We want to be higher up the league. The supporters, us, that's definitely a common purpose, but we are where we are, and we've got to deal with where we are and try and do the best we can. One
of the things that rankles, of course, Karl, is the £11 million dividend that was drawn by the ownership from the club following the departure from the Premier League. Will you fund a return to the Championship and perhaps set your sights on that top division again?
Well, I think we'll do what we need to do, and that we've shown that this time. We've done what we needed to do to get back out of League Two, and that's what I'll sit down and talk to the manager about this week, about what we need to do now to progress in League One, and one step at a time. And it's important, obviously, that I speak to the manager and see what the manager's views are of what we need and what we need to strengthen. Obviously, we need to strengthen, and we need to make sure that we keep this momentum and keep heading in the right direction.
You see, Karl, I think on this show we like to be the voice of the supporters. Paul Alderson on Twitter: the arrogance of Karl Oyston is astonishing here. I feel sorry for the Blackpool fans. Sean on Twitter: the arrogance of Karl Oyston is just astonishing. Karl Oyston thinks he's untouchable. I mean, Karl, at the end of the day, what would you say to the Blackpool fans who went to Wembley yesterday and spent their hard-earned money and supported the team, and they got up? What would you say to them?
What would I say? I'd say, well done. It was fantastic support. The noise they made was wonderful. The support they've given the manager all season was fantastic, and they carried that on yesterday, and it was a good occasion.
And what would you say to the ones who stayed away because of you?
Well, I think that people have got those choices to make. They've made that choice, and they think that's the only choice that they can make, and I'd agree with Gary. It's very, very sad, very unfortunate that people don't feel able to support their team, particularly at an occasion like yesterday, where the National Stadium in a showcase final. It's really, really sad.
But Karl, is it not a situation where you need to know when it's time to go? And that time has come and gone in the eyes of many of these supporters.
You say that, but again, it comes back to the same thing, doesn't it? The same simple thing. If there's no one out there who's prepared to come forward, make an offer, take the club on, you can't just go and leave a club in a vacuum. That's just naive, isn't it, that people would say that.
But, Karl, is there any value at all, equity value, in a business that has £30 million of loans against it?
Well, of course there's a value. There's values in all football clubs. People buy football clubs quite regularly. So until we get to the stage where someone wants to take a football club on, there's nothing to talk about, and that's where we are. There's nothing to talk about. There's no offers, other than, as I've said, the imaginary ones that the supporters trust seem to dream up from time to time. But there's no offers, and we will publicise it if there ever is an offer or an approach.
But
if we're able?
Isn't that because you're a third division club with restricted revenues and an enormous debt hanging over the business?
No, not at all. I'm not quite sure what debt you're on about. The club's got cash. It's got money owed to it from the stadium company. It's not got debt, either external or bank debt. So it's probably in as good a shape as any football club that's certainly in the lower leagues. That's for certain. So it's not an unattractive proposition based on anything, really. It's just that we've had no offers, and until we have had offers, as I've said, there's nothing to talk about.
I see a tweet here from Tangerine Knights. I don't know if you're aware of them, Karl. They say, it's not about us not supporting the team. It's about us not supporting your family and how they run the club. So they love the club, Karl. And you and I have spoken about this over many years. You know me, I know you. But surely it's time.
It's time to create a buyer. Well, you tell me how. I'd be delighted to consider it.
Karl, I'm not convinced even if there was a couple of buyers that you'd want to sell.
Well, we don't know, do we? We don't know that. until someone comes along, nails the colours to the mast, makes an approach, we don't know, and we never will know. So it's really a futile conversation.
Karl, let's say, at least you've come on again, not for the first time, and you do face up to it, and I admire you for that. Let's finish on a positive note. You've got promotion, you're up. How are you going to entice these fans back, even if you are still there?
Well, I think from the discussion we've just had, I think fans will make their own decisions, what they want to do and how they want to do that. We're back in League One. It's a better division, I suppose, for local matches and bigger gates and more atmosphere. I just need to work as hard as I can to do what we can do. And what we can do is work hard with the manager and strengthen the team and make us competitive in this division and try and progress. That's what we do every year, believe it or not. Even in years where you decline, you still try and go through that process to make yourself stronger and achieve, and that's what we'll continue to do.
Karl, I appreciate it. Thanks very much. Congratulations on
Thanks,
the promotion again.
Thank you very much.